Hello everybody, thanks again for watching and welcome to the Earth Hour chat show. Today we have Dr. Hema Kalan. She is an integrative medical doctor and we will be talking to her about health and wellness. So before she comes on, let me tell you the news so long. We had our birthday celebration on the weekend. Earth Yoga is 8 years old now. And we also celebrated the International Day of Yoga. We had a full day of different classes all throughout the day. There was kids yoga, there was somatic yin yoga, slow yoga, vinyasa flow yoga. We did a handstand workshop as well as an Ayurvedic and meditation workshop. These videos are available to purchase at 350 Rand. And you also get bonus videos included with that. It's almost over 10 hours of yoga videos. I highly recommend it, and just let me know, message me if you would like to buy a pack. You can also just do an EFT payment with your name and I think EYB Day as reference. The EYB Day promo code is still valid till the end of June. So make sure you get your class card. It's 20% off, and all you do is type in EYBDAY when you purchase your class card on Bookermat. I also want to remind you that we are open again. We are in the studio, and I've been receiving many messages, people panicking, saying, oh, I can't come in, I've moved or whatever. I would like to continue with online classes. And yes, all of the classes are still online. It is just that we are streaming now from the from the studio. And if you wanted to come in, you can. We are 2 meters apart. There's more than enough space in between people. We can take up to probably 12 people in the studio with the spaces in between them, but we'll probably only cap it that at 8 people. So you can still watch your favorite yoga classes online or practice online or come into the studio. Okay, let's see if Dr. Hema is here yet. There we go. While we're waiting for her to come on. Also, just a reminder that Usi is doing a yin somatic workshop this Saturday, also at the studio, or you can practice on. Hello, Dr. Hema. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Awesome. I'm so glad your yoga studio is open again. I was just listening to that.
Yeah, very exciting. I think I couldn't do it at home anymore. I needed to see my people in person. It's just not quite the same line.
Yeah, I think most people are going to be like that as well. They're going to want to come to the studio. It's not the same when you do it at home.
Yeah, although it works for some people. And, you know, like I said, people that live far away. But many people also struggle with their internet. So, you know, many I couldn't see. They can only dial in voice, or I could only hear their voice, but I couldn't see them. So yeah, much better now that we're back in the studio. And also having both options available is quite nice. So sometimes people get stuck in traffic, and then they have the option to just practice from home. Okay, but enough about us. So you are an integrative medical doctor. So please tell us how, like your story, how did this happen? How did you get to be an integrative medical doctor? And please tell us a little bit more about what an integrative medical doctor is.
Okay. So I'm born into a family who always used home remedies, diet, lifestyle to live well. My grandfather had his first heart attack when he was 30 years old. And his brother died when he was 28 years old. But my grandfather used a healthy lifestyle, diet, meditation, and then he lived up to the age of 93 without any bypasses, without any major operations. So I knew firsthand what a doctor and a patient could do just with partnering together. And so I joined the Red Cross, and I was always in the medical field or aligned in that way. And then over the many years after I had my kids, there were always issues, and I would always go to a homeopath, or I would always go and read about supplements because I felt that's the way my mother grew us up, and I never resorted to pharmaceutical medication at all. But I think my real turning point came in 2009. That was almost 11 years ago, where I basically suffered a stroke. So it was a stroke caused by a migraine, and my artery in my brain went into spasm, and it cut off a certain supply of the brain, and I was left with basically vision impairment in both eyes. From, like, if you look at a clock, it's a slice of a pie that went missing from 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock. And I wasn't paralyzed or anything, but the doctors said that it was going to take 9 months to 12 months for me to recover 360-degree vision again. But with breathing and meditation and yoga and diet, within 6 weeks, my visual fields were basically better than what it was before the stroke. So that was quite interesting. So, I mean, since then, I've basically treated the roots of the problem rather than just doing plain symptom treatment. So what an integrative doctor does is they look at the roots of a problem rather than, like I said, plain symptom treatment with pharmaceutical medication or with even supplements. You're still treating just the symptom. So if you look at yourself like the tree, the branches of the tree are basically your illness. And that branch that is cut off is either the fatigue or the burnout or the diabetes, or it doesn't really have to even have a disease label, but you're just not really completely well. And to get well, most people will resort to taking supplements or pharmaceutical medication. And what that is actually doing is just taking the branch of the tree that is bandaging it with those things. But the real roots, which is how you're eating, how you're sleeping, how you're exercising, what are your thoughts, your toxic thoughts towards yourself, towards other people, your genetics, your environments, your poisons, all of that are basically attributing to those diseases. Because if those roots are not right and have broken one branch, they will break another branch in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, and that's what we want to actually avoid. An integrative medicine doctor, practitioner, they will use a combination of pharmaceutical medication as well as herbal, homeopathic medication, lifestyle medicine. So I am a medical doctor, and I qualified from Wits University over 20 years ago, but I've also done a lot of courses regarding the integrative medicine field.
That's amazing. Okay, so with integrative medicine, so when a client comes and sees you then, do you do like an analysis, asking questions about the personal life, like who you are, to determine what their toxins are? Or, because I guess many of us are a bit asleep to that. We don't realize what our toxins are, what our toxic thoughts are. So how do you approach that? Do we fill in a questionnaire? Do you just ask questions?
Okay, so we do a combination of both. I mean, history taking with any medical doctor is gold standard, but we also send them a questionnaire. We call it a functional medicine questionnaire, and it takes them long, 45 minutes to fill that in. And that questionnaire actually spits out a bar graph showing us what is high priority, what is medium, and what is low priority. But in addition to that, we also ask what were their emotional traumas, what were their physical traumas. Things like how many times a day do they go to the toilet to pass a stool? What time are they going to bed? What are their habits? So it's a very in-depth assessment. And by the second consultation, together with a blood test, we get a pretty good idea of where the patient is and what the plan has to be going forward.
Okay, so there's blood tests then involved as well. And how much is a consultation then?
Okay, so our 45-minute consultation is 1,400. But before the patient has come in, we've looked at the files, we've looked at their past blood results, so we know exactly what is happening. All the consultations are not that long, and follow-up consultations could be the normal GP rates, 15-minute consultations from there, because then after that we target just one section of their life. So if they're not sleeping properly, we will just get the sleep sorted. So not all consultations are that long.
Okay, and then obviously you look at the diet as well. Do you give people diet plans as well?
Okay, so I love doing dietary advice, and I think sometimes the first two consultations, more than 50% of it is based on what am I going to eat, doctor, although I'm not a dietitian. So I don't give them a diet plan per se, but I tell them what they can actually eat and what they should eliminate. We don't do quantities because we all know that our appetites are completely different from day to day. In the weekday, we are more in a stress mode, and so our appetites are less. And then on a Saturday and a Sunday, we are more in a restful, digest phase of our lives. So people will say, on a Saturday and Sunday, my appetite's a little bit more. So we don't put a limit on quantities. We just say, eat however much you want of this, this, and this.
And you test for food allergies as well? Because
We
I
do
think
food.
that's a big thing that's making a lot of people sick are the food allergies.
Yes, so we do food allergy testing, but there's also something which is called food sensitivities. And a food sensitivity is if you eat something on Monday and you're waking up on Thursday with gut pain or nausea or vomiting or a headache, and you have no idea why, because the sweet potato that you ate yesterday was what you've been eating for the last 30 years. So we know that there's certain medical conditions where the food sensitivities can be very high. So we can test for that, but we can also do a trial and error, and you can tell the patient, okay, eliminate this for 2 weeks and then introduce it back into your diet 3 times a day for 3 days and see how you feel. And that's the cheapest way, and it's also sometimes the best way to do it.
Yeah, I guess there's no easy, quick fix. All of this, it takes time, testing
Yes,
to see.
there is no quick fix. It takes a while. So, for example, a person who's burnt out, and we're seeing lots of that recently, because they're not sleeping properly, they're not just even drinking water properly. They're not. They're stressed out. They have multiple tasks that they have to do at home. And that can take a while, but for me, it's always miraculous when I think someone's going to take 3 months to turn something around, and within a month we get a full effect. I mean, we see lots of diabetics, and we tell them, okay, we're just going to change your diet, and then let's see what happens. And in the course that I was doing, they always said it will take them about 24 to 28 weeks to basically decrease their blood glucose levels. I don't know what is it with South Africans, but they decrease it very quickly. Within 2 to 4 weeks, their sugar levels are down. So the need for actually increasing the medication is less. Or even we have to then cut the medication because they're actually experiencing low blood sugar levels.
Do you have a theory about why South Africans recover quicker?
I have no idea. I try to look at that, but I have no idea because all our courses and all our recommendations are all evidence-based medicine, and it generally comes from America. And so our teaching comes from there. And so we expect this time frame, and it's always different with South Africans.
Oh, okay. So you follow the Americans. Okay, so what kind of diets? I guess each person is different. So I've heard, the blood type diet. If you're a certain blood type, then you should rather eat these foods. And then in Ayurveda, we have, the doshas, and that would determine what kind of foods you would eat. What do you recommend people eat? Is there a fit for all, or do you also just depends on the individual?
Yes, so there is never a one size fits all. And similar to Ayurveda, we have to eat what is seasonal. The foods that you're going to eat in summer are not going to be the same that your body requires during winter. We're quite blessed in South Africa that a lot of the food produce that we're getting is seasonal and is local. We don't live in America or Europe where they're basically getting watermelon 365 days of the year, So we're quite blessed in that way. Regarding body types, we try to, like a patient has autoimmune conditions. We know that things like gluten and dairy and soy and peanut may not be the best foods for those patients. But generally, my recommendation is to have whole foods as much as possible. So least amount of processed foods, lightly cooked fresh foods, and concentrating more on a plant-based diet. So I don't expect everyone to become vegan. I don't expect everyone to eliminate red meat or chicken or fish. That's not the focus. The focus is rather increase what you actually can. So for example, cruciferous vegetables. Not everyone loves broccoli, but there's a whole family of cruciferous vegetables. So when I tell patients, what about a red cabbage? Can you buy a red cabbage, clean it, and then for the next 2 weeks, just, have that as a snack? And, increase the amount of raw foods, because what we also find is people tend to overcook a lot of their food. So they don't know how to actually eat raw food. And just doing very basic advice like that, when we tell them, okay, 50% of your lunch, try to aim it, to have raw food, and 50% for dinner raw. Most patients actually land up eating the entire lunch raw, because it has the sprouts, it has the beans, it has the lentils, and it has
making me hungry now.
You understand, broccoli, the guacamole, the hummus, and it's things that actually don't require a lot of attention. My theory is you should always try to eat healthily, but it should not be processed that's like slavery in the kitchen. Limit your cooking time to maximum an hour, and I always say shortcuts in the kitchen. So my patients know, let's do the shortcuts in the kitchen story. So that's what we normally do.
So I did a raw diet at a point, on and off, not because I was sick or anything, just because at that time I thought it was really healthy for me. Okay. But I ended up eating a lot of fats, so lots of avocado and nuts, and I think I did too much of that. And then I got sick.
Okay.
Would you recommend 100% raw diet? Is it dangerous if we eat too much? I guess variety is the key.
Yes, variety is the key. And the reason why we want variety to be key is because all these whole food, plant-based foods that you are eating, they're feeding the microbiome, or the good bacteria that is inside of you. And when you are eating raw food as much as you did, you are missing out on a lot of the starches that actually need to be cooked. So we're talking about your beans and your potatoes and your carrots. Well, carrots can be eaten raw, but we're talking about your legumes. Those starches are very important, and they're building blocks. They make amino acids in our body. So I would not advocate 100% raw diet. I would not advocate 100% cooked diet either. So I think balance is actually the key here, and every individual is different. When we tell patients to eat raw food, the first complaint that comes at the next consultation is, I didn't know a carrot was so hard, because all the time we're eating steamed vegetables. I didn't know this is so hard. We're making so much noise around the dinner table. It's annoying. I'm annoying my wife, because we don't make any sounds when we eat. We normally just swallow, right? Everyone just swallows. So that's usually the complaint. I have to go see my dentist now, because I'm not used to chewing so much. But we were meant to chew,
And that's maybe why our teeth also degrade and become weak. Just like our bones, there isn't really weight going through there to make the teeth stronger if we don't eat that are hard.
Exactly. I mean, if you look at teenagers or children today, almost every single person needs braces. And I found that rather odd, because growing up, it used to always be just 1 or 2 children that needed braces. And I spoke to an orthodontist, and he says that's just the way, humans are evolving. They're not eating as much or using their teeth as much. So as the years go by, we'll start even seeing the disappearance of certain teeth in our mouth, because we're not going to need them anymore.
Yes.
That's just evolution.
My mama always like, don't pull the wisdom teeth. It's the only teeth that work when you're older.
Same. Yes, so chewing is important, eating is important, and mindful eating. That's another thing. I mean, you can have the best diet, you can have a plant-based organic diet, but if you're sitting and eating in front of your cell phone or working, you are not mindful. We know Deepak Chopra was very famous and had an issue with his weight at one point in time, mentioned that it was just he lacked the mindful eating. So if you just sit, in a quiet space for 15 minutes, it's mindfulness that you're doing at the same time as eating.
Yeah, sure. And if somebody like him, slips out of mindfulness, I think we shouldn't be too hard on ourselves if we don't, but we should aim to try our best. I also
Yes,
believe in mindful eating. It is a big thing for me in being healthy.
yes. I mean, just the way you do anything in life, breathing, meditation is just not, that 5 minutes or half an hour or that hour that you're on the yoga mat. It's throughout the day, and we need to incorporate that. Not everyone can be perfect 100% of the time, but I think if you aim for something like 80%, I think then you're okay. And then allow for those times where you do slip up, and that's just completely human nature, you know?
Yeah, because I always get hard on myself and then I fall off the wagon. And then
Okay.
I get into this really bad habits, and then I'm like, it's always like a circle, isn't it? But I
Yes.
think if we're not so hard on ourselves, that it's easier to get back onto the wagon again.
Yes.
How do you feel about juicing, juice diet, and intermittent fasting?
Okay, so we'll start with the juicing. So juicing is great if you don't have the teeth to actually, chew that fruits and vegetables. Supplements, we must understand, always come after a diet, right? So the amount of vitamins and minerals that you're going to get in a juice is always going to be much higher than what you're going to get in any sort of supplement. It's always first. However, with the juicing, it depends on what type of juicing you're doing, whether you are doing a smoothie or whether you are using some sort of juicer that's going to remove the fiber. So I tend to tell patients not to juice, or if they want, limit it to maybe maximum one a day rather than just doing juicing the whole time, because we want the food as it is in nature. So, fruit juices, we generally say no fruit juice at all. But if you eat the fruit on its own, it has the fiber, it has the vitamins, and it has everything to actually help your body.
And
And
they're
then
high in sugar as well, the fruit juices.
yes, but if they are extremely high in sugar and they mess up the teeth in the long term as well. People sometimes who have lots of raw food, they tend to have lots of juices. So we try to say, if you are going to make a juice, put more vegetables into that juice. And regarding intermittent fasting, so this is one thing that I think it's across the board that is accepted. So whether it's normal conventional medicine, whether it's Ayurvedic medicine, whether it's integrative medicine, functional medicine, whatever you call it, intermittent fasting definitely has several health benefits. Ayurvedic doctors, or Ayurveda has basically been doing intermittent fasting for the last 5,000 years. It's only now it's given a really fancy name to say that it's intermittent fasting. But, with Ayurvedic principles, you wake up, you have a very light breakfast, you eat the heaviest meal when the sun is at the highest so you can digest your food the best. And then after sunset, you actually shouldn't be eating anything. So there's usually a fast of at least 12 to 13 hours in Ayurvedic medicine. And they've been doing that for years. I mean, sometimes twice a month, people also go on just a water fast. So they've been doing it for years, and it does help kill off, tumor cells. It does help reset the metabolism. It helps fight or burn fat that we want to. And in cancer also, we call it autophagy. It's when you fast, it's basically the cancer cells are basically starved of the nutrition and they die. So intermittent fasting, I think, is definitely good. Obviously, there are some people that can't do intermittent fasting, or it will be detrimental to their health. For example, we have some diabetics that are very poorly controlled, and if they do not eat regularly and their sugar levels are not great, then they shouldn't do any intermittent fasting in that way. My recommendation is usually to to stabilize the foundation of your body before you do anything extreme. So just increasing your fluid intake, making sure you're sleeping properly, making sure that you're moving properly, making sure that your bowel movements are regular, and doing just those things, then you can add and adjust and modulate whatever you need to in your life.
Okay. And then you mentioned that you are a believer of yoga and meditation.
Mm-hmm.
As from a medical point of view or from a science perspective, why should we practice yoga and meditation?
Okay, so most people always focus on the physical aspects of yoga, right? So they can do this posture and they can do that and headstands, and it makes their bodies toned and the bone density is great. But there are lots of other health benefits that you can actually get from yoga. For example, massaging the nervous system. Your nervous system, when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about the brain and the entire spinal cord. That controls every single thing in your body. I mean, now they're talking about, this virus that's going around, and they're talking about your immune system. But what tells your immune system that's a virus, let's go kill it? It's your nervous system. What tells you that the car is going to bump into you, so move out of the way, or your hand is burning in the fire, take your hand out? It's your nervous system. So it gives you lots of messages, and I always tell patients that it's like the electricity of the body. When your nervous system is low and the lights are dim, you don't know what is happening inside the body. But when it's working properly, the messages are going properly from one place to another. The hormones are getting released. What releases the hormones to say, okay, it's ovulation, okay, you're stressed, okay, let's release insulin because food's coming? It's all your nervous system. So yoga, actually doing it regularly, is going to help massage that entire nervous system. And then from the nervous system, we talk about the muscles and the connective tissue in the bone and the physical body, but it does that. And then regarding from an emotional, spiritual aspect, we always tell patients that awareness is the most important thing. So like you say, you fall off the rails, but it's that awareness that's the thing that's going to get you back onto a program, or get you back to where you actually want to be. And without that awareness, you basically have nothing. So when you're doing yoga, you become more aware of what's happening around you, and you become aware of what is inside of you. We want to activate that wisdom that you're born with, and we want to activate that innate intelligence that you're born with. And when I'm talking about wisdom, I'm not talking about a brain or studying or a degree. I'm talking about that wisdom that does not involve the brain. It's like a mother will say, my child's hungry. She didn't eat properly. And I said, how do you know? And she goes, I don't know, but my child's hungry. Or my child's sick, she's not right, something's wrong. So we want to activate that innate wisdom where we can operate from, right? And then if you in a space that can do that, and then you use your mind together with that, life would actually be much easier. So instead of taking 10 steps to get to your outcome, you can take 3 or 4 steps, which is what we all want to do eventually anyway.
Yeah, I find it interesting. So my teacher was telling me they did this study. They wanted to see if the yogis were in a relaxed state, or if they were activating their fight or flight. So it turns out everyone on this specific group that they tested after the yoga session was in fight or flight. But they were all women, and they all experienced trauma with men, and the teacher was a man. So I think that it's maybe not, you got to choose your yoga classes. It's not all of them that's going to put you in a relaxed state. You got to find your teacher. You got to find your tribe.
Yes.
I think there's more variables involved.
Yes, I've given so many talks at yoga studios. I think I've probably been to at least 15 of them in Pretoria. And I tell my patients, try it out. We usually say, look at it as a vacation. This month, go to this yoga studio. The next month, go to that yoga studio. And what you're basically doing is you developing your basket. And there's certain times in your life where you would need this type of yoga, or the next time you would need this yoga studio. But whichever one you go to, it's basically a healing pod. You know, I think yoga and yoga studios and yoga teachers don't get enough attention. They don't get paid enough because they actually
No.
heal people. They actually heal people much more than they even realize. You know, after my stroke and my vision was gone, it was all the breathing that I had learned for the last 10 years before I had the stroke that helped me heal so quickly. It's, you know, imagining the teacher telling me your breath is your freedom. So even though you're in a tunnel and you're doing this MRI, my breath was my freedom. So I wasn't bound by anything. And then you realize that you're actually limitless, you know.
That makes me so happy to hear that from a doctor. I had some questions here that I saw popping up. So let me just, before there are too many comments and I get lost. So somebody was asking about intermittent fasting and stomach acid. So what about high stomach acid levels and intermittent fasting?
Okay, so usually when patients come to me during the first or second consultation, we actually test for stomach acidity to see if they have too high or they have too low stomach acidity. Because low stomach acidity can also present like you have high stomach acidity. So for example, if you don't have enough stomach acid, you won't be able to digest your food. So then you'll end up burping a lot. We can see that, you know, if there's any ridges on the nails, they do a beetroot test, they do a bicarb test, and with all of that, we basically say, okay, second consultation, you have a high stomach acid. Let's try to see how we can help fix that. There's also a nerve, you know, the vagus nerve that's, you know, it helps release the acid. And usually these patients are sitting on a computer quite a bit, and it's the middle of their thoracic spine that needs adjustment, like in that area of the T4, T5. So if that nerve is very irritated to the stomach, we can pick it up even on the physical examination that there's either reflux, low stomach acid, high stomach acid, all of that. So when it comes to stomach acid and intermittent fasting, first we have to decide, you know, is your digestive system working okay? If you do not have enough stomach acid to digest the food, then fasting for long periods of time would not be good for you, because that would basically upset you. So we usually say, if you want to start with intermittent fasting, fast for 12 hours, master that, then you go to 13 hours. So in the meantime, we help heal whatever needs to be healed in the stomach.
I think that's a very important thing. Do you know the medical medium? Not do you know him? Have you heard? I'm sure you've heard of the medical medium. And he started the whole celery juice thing. And he talks a lot about the acid levels in the stomach, and that when you drink the celery juice, 500 milliliters every day, first thing in the morning, that will help to regulate it. Because I think that this is also related to SIBO. I think many people are now getting SIBO. At some point, I was diagnosed with it. And it was really just that vagus nerve that was so irritated. And it presented as like that, oh, if I go to a doctor, a normal medical doctor, they would put me on antibiotics. And of course it didn't work, and for over a year, I struggled with that, severe digestive issues. And I don't think that people quite realize how important this vagus nerve is and the nervous system in our healing.
Yes. So the problem also with the intermittent fasting is when people don't eat for a long period of time. So they're fasting for, let's say, 14 hours or 15 hours. They're not drinking enough during the time that they are actually fasting. So what some patients are landing up having is that when they do have that meal at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, they don't have enough digestive fire, you know, like in Ayurveda, we call it digestive fire, to actually burn the Agni, yes, to actually burn and digest the food that they're now consuming. So it's leaving them even more lethargic and more bloated. So my suggestion is usually, if you're going to do intermittent fasting, during the time when you are not eating, it's a very good idea to sip on ginger tea, because ginger tea takes that gas flame that is almost non-existent and it keeps it at a very low, moderate flame. So when the food actually comes in, your digestive fire is fine to actually digest the food.
Okay. Okay, let's see. So if anybody has any questions for the doctor, please post it so that we can make your voice heard. Oh, somebody just commented, but you look so young. You really do look good, doctor.
So
What's
then
your
I should
daily
say
diet?
the Ayurvedic diet does work then, because that's what I've been eating since I was born. I mean, in a couple of years, I will be 50, you know. I have kids in high school. So I think I eat very simply. There are some patients that do really amazing things in the kitchen, and they would make lasagna with kale, and they would do all of that. And my kitchen is it's very simple. You know, my food is very simple, but I try to avoid sauces, canned foods, you know, processed
Even the
foods.
canned beans? Do you recommend we cook our own beans?
Yes, so I mean, the amount of beans that are in a can wouldn't sustain my family, and I think I would need 4 or 5 cans for a meal. So I usually suggest that, you know, I even teach patients, you know, soak the beans, buy an entire kilogram of the beans, soak it, take a third of the packet and make it into bean burgers. Another third, you can use it in burritos. Another third, you can actually freeze it, or you can make a bean type of hummus or a pate. But it comes more towards just eating whole foods, you know?
Yeah, I grew up in a family that mostly just ate meat or eat meat, and I never learned how to cook beans, and I think for many years I didn't cook them properly. And I used to get quite bloated and nauseous and burpy from when I eat the beans. And then
Yes.
someone suggested and asked me, "Are you cooking them properly?" Like, so how should we cook the beans and the lentils?
Okay, so the best way to actually cook any sort of bean or lentil is to soak it overnight, because that will just cut the cooking process a lot. I have a pressure cooker at home, and I've just recently started using the Instant Pot, and it's made life actually much easier. So pressure cooking will also take away and beans that are well cooked will basically eliminate all that issues that we hear about in the news about lectins, how, you know, people who eat lots of plants have high amount of lectins and it's going to mess up their digestive system. But when you're actually cooking your beans and lentils properly, you're eliminating that problem. The important thing is that once your beans or lentils are cooked, I usually rinse those really well, and then add them to whatever, you know, curry or stir fry that you're going to have, rather than using that same water, which could basically produce a lot of gas.
And then with nuts as well, rather soak them overnight.
So it depends on how much time you have on your hands. Otherwise, you'll be doing a whole lot of these things. But ideally, the nuts should be raw. And if you have the time and the energy, I think, you know, you can soak them.
And you mentioned shortcuts in the kitchen. Can you give us a few hints?
Okay. Okay. So most patients that I see on the first visit, a lot of them are not sleeping properly. And so what we advocate is for them to start eating a lot of sweet potato. So we would tell them that take 2 bags of sweet potato, put it on bake in the oven. And so you're going to basically cook them in their peels, just wash them, put them on a baking tray, and it's going to take about 45 minutes for those 2 bags to roast quite nicely. And then you cut the sweet potato in half and just take a teaspoon and scoop it up. So that is the first thing with the sweet potato. I said the leftovers, you can put it in the fridge. So that basically doesn't take a lot of effort. The next day, if you have an air fryer, you can take it and put it back into the air fryer, or you can peel it and put a little bit of rosemary, balsamic vinegar, or lemon and black pepper, and that's a side. Or you can blend it and that becomes a sweet potato soup. Or you can put it in a lettuce wrap or a taco. So there's one food that can actually go a really long way. what I normally do with the beans and lentils, we say, okay, you know, have your either beans curry with the rice or buckwheat or rotis or whatever you want on the one day. And the next day you can take that very same thing and you could add a little bit of oats, or my favorite, which is the flax powder, and put it in a food processor, and it's become a bean burger instantly. So when I have busy days, I always try to plan for that day and the next day. And the kids have no idea they're basically eating the same food in a very different form. And my trick to actually getting them to eat a lot of the beans and the lentils that they may not like or enjoy so much is my famous guacamole that I make. And the guacamole that I make, the recipe is on my website. But I usually take two very nice avocados. I would take a red onion. I would take a whole bunch of coriander, because that would leach all the heavy metals from their bodies. I would take a tomato. I would take all the pulp out and put that in, and just lemon and salt, and I would blend it, and it just has such a nice flavor. I mean, sometimes if we want to become a little bit more adventurous, we could put a little bit of raw cauliflower or corn or red pepper, yellow pepper, and because it's blended in either a NutriBullet or a food processor, they have no idea what they're actually eating.
Gotta trick them.
Yes, and the same thing with our pasta sauces that we have. You know, I've got again, that recipe is on the website, where it's 40% tomato and 60% vegetables. And the secret ingredient in that is basically the yellow pepper, the red pepper, and the sweet potato. But it's just a sauce with all vegetables. You can even put baby marrow, you can put brinjal, and I usually put lots of turmeric, lots of garlic, Himalayan salt, and after it's cooked nicely, blend it, serve it, and it's that nice, rich orange color. And again, nobody realizes what they're actually eating. So that could be a dip, that could be a pasta sauce, that could be a soup. So that's quite shortcuts that you can use.
Do you make YouTube videos, or you've just put the recipe on your website?
I just have recipes on my website. I've been asked for YouTube videos on sprouts. I've been asked on my chocolate truffles. I just haven't had the time. I've been asked to write a recipe book, because sometimes we don't even get to the blood results, and I have to tell patients, okay, we spoke about food for 15 minutes. Can we just please move on? You know, what I love doing is analyzing your bloods and making a plan, you know. But it's just sometimes people are so, how can I say, looking for new ways to create a little bit of interesting food that, you know, the consultation goes towards that always.
Yeah, I hear you. I think you'll do very well with a YouTube channel, a cooking channel. I'm looking forward to that. I've heard stories about that we shouldn't be eating broccoli raw, that it's also got almost like the beans and legumes. And it's got some kind of poison in it. Is that true, that we should always steam it, that's one vegetable we shouldn't eat raw?
Are you talking specifically for people with thyroid illness or just general?
General, because I used to load the raw broccoli in, and then a friend of mine was like, no, you know, she heard from a doctor that it isn't healthy. What is your take on it?
Okay, so, you know, the environmental working group in America, they always come up with a list every year. What are the clean vegetables that you can eat, and what are the dirty vegetables, meaning you should try to get them more organic. And you know, in South Africa, it's very hard to get fresh organic produce at a reasonable price every day or whenever you need to. You know, it always involves some sort of planning or ordering or delivery of boxes. And that sometimes makes things a little bit hard to eat just the organic produce. Regarding the vegetables, whether they're organic or not, there were some studies done, and people who were scared to eat certain amount of vegetables because they weren't organic, they actually became depleted in their nutrients, because, you know, the vitamins and minerals and fiber and nutrients, you only get it from your fruits and vegetables and your beans and lentils. You don't actually get a lot of the vitamins from any other types of food unless it's fortified cereals and those type of food. So a study was done where they compared whether you should eat the food that has the pesticides or the that's non-organic, or whether you should only eat the things that are organic. And the conclusion was that even though there are some foods that may have pesticides, I mean, we have no idea what's sprayed these days, the environment, because toxins can spread for up to like, kilometers on end. The conclusion was that you're better off still eating the food rather than avoiding it. So even though it's not organic, it's best to still have it. Regarding the amount of food that you are eating, it's always great not to overdo a single vegetable and rather have a whole family of vegetables. I mean, there's a person that I know that actually used to juice a lot of carrots. I think she used to go through 3 kilograms of carrots a day. Eventually, she had something which medical doctors call carotenemia, where her skin started looking quite orange. So the moral of the story is there is a huge variety that is available then, and just don't hone in on any of that. Some patients think that with thyroid illness, they should completely avoid the goitrogens that's found in broccoli, cauliflower, kale. But you do not have to avoid that. They still have benefits. And if you do want to have that and you have thyroid illness, then it's best that you actually lightly steam it.
Okay.
Okay.
We have a question here. What food would you advise to eat more of for individual with IBD diseases such as ulcerative colitis?
Okay, so with those patients, I would actually, it depends how long they've been having these symptoms, but I would actually suggest that we do a food sensitivity test. And these are tests that are done very easily. I know Dischem is one of the places that does them as well. And we test 90 different foods. And what we are basically doing is we're working with your body, because I can tell you, okay, broccoli is very healthy, but broccoli may be the very well thing that's causing you to have cramps and bloating. So I would suggest that we do a food sensitivity test, and then work from there. We usually do a full type of a detox where we eliminate certain foods and then we introduce them back into the diet. If we do not win with that, then there are some very fancy stool tests available that are done locally as well as in laboratories overseas. And we can actually pinpoint which bacteria or which fungi or what is actually not in balance. So regarding IBD, I would suggest a food sensitivity test, but also starches are quite good for patients with IBD. So we're talking about your peas and your carrots and your sweet potato, your potato, those butternut, pumpkin, those are actually quite soothing to the gut.
Thank you. Okay, so I have another question for you.
Yes.
How do you feel about oil pulling? So we were talking about the teeth earlier, and I've heard so many, like some people swear by it, others are like, no, it's dangerous. You inhale the oil and you get like a typhoid pneumonia or something like that. To the point where I even stopped putting like Vicks or Carvel on my son if he has a cough because I'm so scared that he's inhaling like oils into his lungs. Tell me more about that. How do you feel about that?
Okay, so oil pulling again, it's something, people in Ayurvedic medicine have been doing it for like 5,000 years. And the reason they do oil pulling is that when you have any sort of toxin, whether it's a toxic thought, whether it's a toxin from the environment, whether it's a toxin from your body, whatever you're eating, it's stored in a fat cell. So the toxins are fat soluble. And in order for the body to eliminate it, we have to change it into a water-soluble product so it can come out either in your stool or your urine or your breath. And when we're trying to get it out using external methods, then we have to use fat to actually help the body get rid of those toxins. So when I'm saying externally, we're talking about either with an oil massage or either with the oil pulling. So the oil pulling is extremely beneficial, and I would suggest lots of patients do that, because our bacteria in our mouth is just not bacteria that's related to the mouth. I mean, now there's lots of studies to show that your heart health is very closely related to the oral microbiome, or how well your teeth are. So the important thing to start off when you're doing the oil pulling is to take very small amounts of oil. If you have a gag reflex that's very sensitive, or you're one of those people that will accumulate saliva very easily, I usually suggest do half a teaspoon or a quarter teaspoon of oil, and swish it around your mouth. They call it pulling because you're literally pulling the oil between your teeth, like, and they usually recommend doing it for 20 to 30 minutes in the morning on an empty stomach. But
Long time.
Yes, that can be long for lots of people. So I usually say start off very slow and go slow, and your body will actually build up. There are some companies that are selling those coconut oil sachets for oil pulling, but it's a lot of coconut oil, and the idea is that we do not want anyone to swallow it, because you're basically swallowing a toxin. So when you are done with the oil pulling, we usually say get a bowl or a paper towel ready, because you do not want to spit that oil down the drain, because we all know coconut oil hardens in cold weather. So we basically want to
block your pipe.
Yes, and that's not nice. So gargle your mouth thoroughly after you're doing the oil pulling, and brush your teeth really well, because we want all those toxins to leave the mouth. But it has been shown to be very beneficial for even infections in the mouth, issues with the heart, autoimmune conditions where it's related to
bleeding gums and that kind of stuff. And it also whitens your teeth, doesn't it?
Exactly. Without being any abrasive, your body's going to heal at its pace. So your body's going to decide this is how we're going to be doing that.
And what about rinsing your mouth? I've also heard of wheatgrass powder.
Okay, so it depends when you want to actually use those type of powders to rinse the mouth. But we know that things like tea tree, or even not tea tree, what am I saying? Green tea and wheatgrass are very beneficial to use as rinse aids, rather than some of the products that are on the shelf that actually kill a lot of the oral bacteria that we do not want killed.
Okay, so you can do both of them. Wheatgrass, yes. Oil pulling should be fine.
Yes, yeah.
And then another craze that's really hit the world is the CBD oil and the cannabis. How do you feel about those?
Okay, so there's definitely a place for those things, but the way everyone's taking it now, like it's a one-size-fits-all approach, I tell patients, you're basically just taking the branch and you're bandaging it, and you're trying to fix it with, a CBD oil. But what are the roots? You're still not sleeping properly. You're still not eating properly. You're still very stressed and wired. So whether you're using the CBD oil like a pharmaceutical medication or something, herbal or natural, you're not actually treating the root cause of the issue. It does have some benefits, and there's a place for it. And I know there's lots of local universities also doing studies on it, but it isn't for everyone.
Yeah, I guess you still have to do the work. Exactly. You can't just use it as, oh, it's going to fix my problems. You got to do work through the emotional body. You got to do the work on the physical body.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, what I forgot to ask you about the food and being organic. I usually wash my food or my fruit and vegetables with apple cider vinegar, and that kind of puts my mind at ease. I'm telling myself that I'm washing all of the non-organic chemicals off. Does it help, or is it just an old wives' tale?
No, it does actually help. So obviously washing the fruit, I mean, even if it's just plain water, you are washing whatever is gone on the surface. But like I said, if something's growing in the ground, it's going to be absorbed through the root. So the inside of that potato is still going to have the pesticide, but the skin does prevent certain amounts coming in. So it is definitely always beneficial to wash it. There's lots of natural washes that you can find that are freely available on the market as well, that are very gentle. So you can wash those as well, especially with food like with berries that have very thin skin and bruise easily, like the blueberries, raspberries, strawberries. I usually recommend that, one of those organic washes. You just put one drop, it lathers quite nicely, cleans the berries quite nicely, and then it's fine to eat.
Yeah, I'm always shocked about the dirt that comes off the vegetables. I mean, you look at it, it looks clean and shiny, and then you add the apple cider vinegar and the water's brown. It's okay.
Yes.
Usi is asking, is drinking ACV water in the morning helpful to regulate pH levels? Yeah, that's another thing that I've heard is the pH level of our body.
Okay, so it does help to regulate the pH levels, drinking apple cider vinegar in the morning. Those people that want to lose a little bit of weight, we tell them maybe put a spoon of it in water and have it like around your meals, like maybe half an hour after your meal. We can do a test and we can look at the uric acid levels and see how acidic a person is or not. I mean, you can also do the urine dipsticks. People also sometimes will buy these pH strips from the health shop and test their saliva. So it does help, but to a certain extent. It's like drinking base powder. It does help, but only to a certain extent. I mean, I would say the majority of time it's still your diet that's going to change the pH levels in your body. So we can drink all the apple cider vinegar or the base powder, but it's your diet that has to change.
If you drink a bottle of vodka a day, then that ACV is not really going to help.
Exactly. Nothing's going to help.
Okay, well, I didn't know that you could get the strips yourself. I guess that's a good way then to gauge if your body is healthy. If it's showing up acidic, then you know you're eating the wrong foods.
Yes.
Too much of the wrong.
Yes, and most patients, it's amazing when it comes to acidity, they actually know when they're acidic because the migraine would flare up or they would feel very nauseous. They're bringing up the acid in the morning, or they're getting this headache, or even their joints are flaring up or the pain's increasing. So most patients are actually aware before even testing anything that they're better or they're not.
Yeah. And then to make our body more alkaline is obviously just eating whole foods. That's going to help.
Yes, a whole food, plant-based diet as much as possible. So like I said, it doesn't mean that we have to eliminate all the chicken and the fish and the red meat. But if you're increasing the amount of plant foods, your need to actually eat those others will become less.
I also think that we're addicted to those bad foods. The McDonald's and those things. It must create like a chemical in your body, and we get addicted to that. But you also can get addicted to the good food and the good feeling that it gives you. But there's a transition for me. It takes a while. And your taste buds change as well.
Yes, so it definitely takes a while. I mean, I think your taste buds are going to take at least 6 to 12 weeks to change. So it's a slow process. I mean, you'll eventually get to a stage where sometimes you can eat certain things that doesn't have sugar and you will say, this is very sweet. Because, growing up, I could never eat a salad without any sort of salad dressing. I always needed like a salad dressing or olive oil or balsamic because my palate, I guess, was not as sensitive as it is at the moment. And now I can eat anything and you can taste the differences in the tomatoes you get, whether it's a cherry tomato, whether it's a vine-ripened tomato. And it's quite nice when you can get the individual flavors of the different foods.
Mm. Oh, and then my new favorite, or seems to be a new trend coming out now, is the breads with the ancient grain. And I heard that the normal grains that we're using now has some kind of acid in it that is causing food allergies or, I don't know, gluten intolerance or what. Or maybe I don't quite understand how that links together. But they're saying that the ancient grain does not have that acid. That's not good for us. Oh no, we're right out of time. It's going to cut.
Yes, it's cut.
Quickly tell us your website.
Okay, it's www.drhemakalan.com, and that's my Instagram handle and my Facebook handle as well. You're welcome to sign up for my newsletter where you will get regular updates. And I just want to thank everyone for joining us in, and thank you for this opportunity. Thank you.